Did you know that Beverly Hills Cop 3 was so disastrous that Eddie Murphy himself called it garbage, grossed less than half of what Beverly Hills Cop 2 made, and nearly killed the entire franchise? In fact, Murphy was so disappointed by the third installment that it took an astonishing 30 years for him to return as Axel Foley in 2024's Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. What's particularly shocking is that this catastrophic failure came after the original Beverly Hills Cop had cemented itself as one of the defining action comedies of the 1980s, launching Eddie Murphy to superstardom and grossing over $316 million worldwide. The first film was so influential that it single-handedly transformed the buddy cop genre, blending sharp comedy with legitimate action in a way that countless films would attempt to replicate for decades. So, before we dive into exactly what went so wrong with Beverly Hills Cop 3 and how it derailed one of Hollywood's most promising franchises, a real quick ask that if you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to hit that subscribe button now. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Now, let's examine how a surefire hit became one of the most notorious franchise killers of the 1990s. Reason number 1, a franchise in decline. Even before Beverly Hills Cop 3 was released, the franchise was already showing signs of wear. While the original Beverly Hills Cop was a genuine phenomenon that captured lightning in a bottle, combining Eddie Murphy's comedic genius with legitimately thrilling action, Beverly Hills Cop 2 marked the beginning of a downward trajectory. The original film earned an impressive 83% on Rotten Tomatoes and grossed over $316 million worldwide, a staggering sum for 1984. Beverly Hills Cop 2, while still financially successful with $276 million, saw its critical reception plummet to just 46%. Critics noted that the sequel, directed by Tony Scott, leaned too heavily on the action and spectacle at the expense of character-driven comedy that made the original so special. By the time Beverly Hills Cop 3 entered production in the early 1990s, the franchise had already lost substantial momentum. The 7-year gap between the second and third films didn't help matters, allowing audience enthusiasm to cool significantly. What's more, Murphy's own career had entered a transitional period, with films like The Distinguished Gentleman and Boomerang underperforming compared to his earlier blockbusters. Reason number 2, complete tonal confusion. Perhaps the most jarring aspect of Beverly Hills Cop 3 is its bizarre and inconsistent tone. The original film succeeded by balancing edgy R-rated humor with genuine stakes and thrilling action. The third installment, however, seems utterly confused about what kind of movie it really wants to be. In one of the franchise's most baffling creative decisions, much of Beverly Hills Cop 3 takes place at Wonderworld, a thinly veiled Disneyland knockoff. This family-friendly setting creates an inherent contradiction with the R-rated franchise, leading to scenes that feel completely out of place, like Axel Foley disguising himself as Okie Dokie, an elephant mascot, and performing the Okie Dokie Shuffle for children. Director John Landis, who had previously worked with Murphy on the comedy classic Coming to America, seemed uncertain whether to make a gritty action film or a more kid-friendly adventure. The result is a movie that fails at both. The violence and language maintain the R rating, but the setting and many of the sequences feel designed for a much younger audience. According to reports from the production, this tonal confusion stemmed partly from Murphy himself, who allegedly wanted to minimize the comedy and focus more on action. However, the action sequences lack the intensity and creativity of similar films from that era, while the reduced comedy undermines Murphy's greatest strengths as a performer. Reason number 3, the absence of key characters. One of the most significant factors in Beverly Hills Cop 3's failure was the absence of several key characters who provided the essential chemistry that made previous films work. Most notably, Detective John Taggart, played by John Astin, doesn't appear at all, a critical loss that fundamentally alters the dynamic of the film. In the original films, Taggart served as the perfect foil to Axel Foley, as a by-the-book, no-nonsense cop who provided the friction and resistance that allowed Murphy's character to shine. Their antagonistic relationship, which gradually evolved into reluctant respect and eventually friendship, was central to the charm of the first two movies. Without Taggart's gruff counterbalance, Axel loses the character dynamics that made his antics so entertaining. The film attempts to introduce new characters to fill this void, with Hector Elizondo's John Flint serving as Axel's new Beverly Hills contact. However, Flint lacks the established history and chemistry with Foley, and their relationship feels hollow compared to the rich character dynamics of the previous films. Reason number 4, the transformation of Axel Foley. The most damaging element of Beverly Hills Cop 3 might be what it does to its own protagonist. The Axel Foley of the original films was quick-witted, irreverent, and charismatic, a fish out of water who used his street smarts and humor to navigate Beverly Hills. In the third installment, however, this beloved character has become almost unrecognizable. The Axel Foley we meet in Beverly Hills Cop 3 is notably subdued, lacking the energy and charm that made the character iconic. Murphy, who was reportedly unhappy with the direction of the film, delivers a performance that feels disengaged and restrained. The rapid-fire wit and infectious laugh that define the character are largely absent, replaced by a more serious, almost grim demeanor. This transformation appears to have been partly intentional. According to production interviews, Murphy wanted to show a more mature version of Axel, one who had grown and evolved over the years. While character development can be valuable, Beverly Hills Cop 3 strips away the very qualities that made audiences fall in love with Axel Foley in the first place, without replacing them with anything equally compelling. Reason number 5. Lackluster action and uninspired filmmaking. For a film that supposedly shifted its focus from comedy to action, Beverly Hills Cop 3 delivers remarkably uninspired set pieces. The action sequences lack the creativity and tension that would justify the reduced emphasis on comedy, resulting in a film that fails on both fronts. Director John Landis, whose previous collaborations with Murphy had been primarily comedic, seemed uncomfortable with the action-oriented approach. The shootouts and chase sequences feel perfunctory and generic, lacking the kinetic energy that directors like Tony Scott brought to Beverly Hills Cop 2. Even the climactic confrontation at Wonderworld fails to generate genuine excitement or stakes. The Die Hard in a theme park concept actually had potential, but the execution fell flat. Where films like Die Hard used their confined settings to create tension and memorable action beats, Beverly Hills Cop 3 fails to capitalize on its unique location in any meaningful way. The Wonderworld setting becomes merely a backdrop rather than an integral part of the action. The filmmaking itself also lacks the visual flair of its predecessors. The original Beverly Hills Cop had a gritty, authentic feel that contrasted nicely with the glamorous Beverly Hills setting, while the sequel embraced a slick, stylized approach under Tony Scott's direction. Beverly Hills Cop 3, by comparison, has a flat, television-like quality to its cinematography and staging that fails to create a distinct visual identity for the movie. Reason number 6. A troubled production. Many of Beverly Hills Cop 3's problems can be traced back to its troubled production history. The film went through multiple iterations and delays before finally making it to screens in 1994, and these behind-the-scenes issues manifested themselves in the final product. The development of Beverly Hills Cop 3 began shortly after the success of the second film, but the project languished in development hell for years. Multiple scripts were written and discarded, with concepts ranging from sending Axel to London or Japan before eventually settling on the Wonderworld setting. This lack of clear creative direction from the outset suggested a film being made primarily for commercial rather than artistic reasons. The relationship between star Eddie Murphy and director John Landis was reportedly strained during production. The two had previously worked together successfully on Coming to America, but their reunion on Beverly Hills Cop 3 was far less harmonious. According to later interviews with Landis, Murphy's attitude and behavior had changed significantly between the two productions, creating significant tensions on set. Reason number 7. Changing times and evolving audience tastes. By the time Beverly Hills Cop 3 was released in 1994, the landscape of action comedies had changed dramatically. The formula that had seemed so fresh and innovative in 1984 now appeared dated and out of step with contemporary audience tastes. The original Beverly Hills Cop helped define the action comedy genre of the 1980s with its blend of R-rated humor, fish-out-of-water storytelling, and legitimate action. By the mid-1990s, however, this approach had been imitated, refined, and, in many cases, surpassed by films that pushed the genre in new directions. Films like Lethal Weapon 3 and Bad Boys had raised the bar for buddy cop action comedies, offering more sophisticated action choreography and deeper character dynamics. In this evolving landscape, Beverly Hills Cop 3 felt like a relic of a bygone era rather than a fresh, contemporary take on the franchise. The film failed to acknowledge or adapt to changing audience expectations, resulting in a sequel that felt out of touch with the times. But hey, that's just our opinion. What do you think? Was Beverly Hills Cop 3 as terrible as its reputation suggests, or does it have redeeming qualities that critics and audiences missed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into cinema's most interesting failures and successes. This video was made by movie fans, for movie fans.